Operate and troubleshoot reciprocating engine. During a routine run-up on a single-engine trainer, everything checks out except for a noticeable drop in RPM during magneto testing. What could be causing it? The real cause will reveal itself once you start troubleshooting. Let's take a look at how to troubleshoot common issues in a reciprocating engine. Before we discuss some of the common issues, let's recall the basics. A four-stroke reciprocating engine operates on four key events: intake, compression, power, and exhaust. These strokes don't work in isolation. They're all connected. A problem in one can ripple through the rest. Problems like low power, rough running, or hard starts all trace back to a specific part of the engine's operating cycle. Let's start with the first issue that can cause an RPM drop. You run a compression test, and one cylinder reads much lower than the others. The engine starts, but the power just isn't there. So, what can be the issue here? Most likely, it's a leaking intake or an exhaust valve. You can confirm that with a differential pressure test. If you hear hissing from the exhaust stack or intake, it points to valve leakage, usually from poor seating, wear, or carbon buildup. But if the air escapes through the crankcase breather, then you're likely looking at worn or damaged piston rings. Let's move to the second issue, rough running on one magneto. If the engine starts running rough when you switch to a single magneto, chances are the spark plug or ignition lead connected to that magneto is fouled, cracked, or misfiring. It could also be a bad magneto, or the timing could be off. A good way to isolate the fault is to swap spark plugs between cylinders or test the resistance in the ignition leads. This method helps confirm if the problem is truly ignition related and saves you from replacing parts unnecessarily. Now let's talk about oil consumption and visible exhaust smoke. If you see steady white smoke coming from the exhaust, the engine is likely burning oil. That usually points to worn piston rings, broken oil control rings, or scored cylinder walls. These problems reduce compression, lower engine power, and increase oil consumption. To investigate further, use a bore scope to inspect the condition of the cylinder walls. And if needed, remove the cylinder for a closer look at the pistons and ring grooves. Now, let's look at another common issue, backfiring during throttle advance. If you hear a backfire when you increase power, it usually points to a lean fuel air mixture or an intake leak, both of which affect the intake stroke. Start by checking for loose intake flanges, cracked induction hoses, or even a sticking intake valve. Also, consider the carburetor. If it's malfunctioning or if there's a fuel metering issue, that could be the cause, especially if the backfiring happens consistently at low power settings. It could also be the mixture setting. The mixture could be too lean and needs to be adjusted. Troubleshooting isn't about guessing, it's about understanding systems. Because in aviation, being right isn't lucky, it's learned.